There is a fly on your kitchen table, and it has been sitting there for 11 minutes. You have already tried once. You were quiet about it. You waited, you lined it up, you brought your hand down with everything you had, and now the table is stinging, and the fly is 2 inches to the left, calmly cleaning its own face with its front legs. You told yourself it got lucky. It did not get lucky. It watched you decide. It watched you commit. And then it left, in its own time, without hurrying. Your hand was never too slow for that fly. Your hand arrived inside a second that was longer than yours, and by the time it got there, the fly had already been gone for a while. The obvious answer is that flies are fast. The real answer is stranger, and it has almost nothing to do with speed. Everybody has the same explanation ready, so let us take it seriously first. Flies are faster than us. Smaller body, quicker muscles, less mass to move. It sounds complete, and it explains nothing at all. Here is why. Your hand covers the distance to that fly in roughly 1/10 of a second. That is genuinely quick. A housefly's escape jump takes only a few thousandths of a second, so yes, it is quicker in the air. But being quicker only helps if you know the hand is coming. A creature that saw the world the way you see it, at your pace, would be looking at an empty table, and then, with no warning in between, at a hand already on top of it. Speed is useless without warning, so the fly must be getting warning, a lot of it. And that means the interesting question is not how fast the fly moves. The interesting question is how fast the fly sees. Your eyes take the world in flashes. You do not notice this because your brain smooths the flashes into something that feels continuous. But there is a hard limit to how many separate flickers you can still tell apart before they blur into a steady glow. For you, that limit sits around 60 a second. This is not an insult. It is why films look like motion instead of a slideshow, and why a light bulb looks like a light and not a stutter. A housefly does not stop at 60. A housefly keeps separating flashes up to around 250 a second. Sit with that for a moment. In the same single second where you get one smooth picture, the fly is getting a stack of them, one after another, each one a fresh look at the room. A hand coming down is not a blur to it. It is a sequence. It is a hand here, then slightly lower still, with time in between each one. There is also a reason the fly cannot afford to be any slower than this, and it has nothing to do with you. A housefly beats its wings around 200 times a second, and it flies through a cluttered world of table legs and door frames and moving arms while doing it. At that rate, a course correction has to be decided and executed inside a few thousandths of a second, or the fly is simply a small object traveling into a wall. Fine time is not a luxury it evolved for swatting contests. Fine time is the minimum requirement for being able to fly at all in a kitchen. In 2013, a team led by Kevin Healy pulled together this measurement across 34 different species and found the pattern underneath it. The smaller the animal and the faster its metabolism burns, the more images per second it pulls out of the world. Perceiving time finely is expensive. You have to be small and hot to afford it, and the fly pays for it in another currency too. Its eye is built from a few thousand tiny separate units, and the picture they hand over is coarse and blocky, nothing like the detail you are reading this with. The fly does not see better than you. It sees worse, more often. Given the choice between knowing exactly what the thing is and knowing exactly when it moved, the fly's ancestors chose when, every single time for millions of years. The ones who chose what are not anybody's ancestors. Now the part that changes the shape of this whole story. At Caltech, in 2008, Gwyneth Card and Michael Dickinson pointed a high-speed camera at fruit flies and dropped a looming shape toward them, over and over from different angles. What they expected to see was a reflex, a startle, a scramble, a jump. What they filmed instead was preparation. In the fraction of a second after the fly spots the threat, before it jumps, before there is any visible drama at all, the fly works out which direction the danger is coming from and quietly repositions its middle legs. It leans, it sets its body up so that when it does launch, the launch already points away from you. The jump is the last step of something that started much earlier. This is the flip. You are not losing to a reflex. You are losing to a plan. While your hand was still deciding, back when you thought you were being sneaky, the fly had already read the geometry of the room, chosen its exit, and shifted its weight for it. Everything after that was just you, arriving late into a decision that had already been taken without you. Once you know to look for it, this stops being a fact about flies and becomes a fact about everything with eyes. A leatherback turtle, huge and cold and unhurried, sits near the bottom of the scale, around 15 flashes a second. The world it moves through is smeared and slow, and it has never needed anything else. Your dog sits higher than you do, around 80. That is why old televisions, the deep heavy ones, visibly flickered for dogs while looking perfectly steady to the people on the couch. You were watching a picture. Your dog was watching a strobe light. And then there is the swordfish, which does something that should not be allowed. Hunting at depth in cold water, where every cold-blooded eye gets sluggish, the swordfish runs a dedicated tissue behind its eyes that heats the eyes and the brain far above the water around them. In 2005, Kirsten Fritches and her colleagues measured what that heat buys, and it was more than a tenfold improvement in how finely those eyes carve up time. The swordfish is not swimming faster than its prey. It is warming its own eyes to make the prey look slower. The tiger beetle gets the opposite deal. It sprints so hard after prey that its eyes cannot gather enough light to keep up, and it effectively goes blind at full speed. So it runs, stops, looks, runs again. It outran its own vision. One honest thing, because it matters. Everything above is measured. How many flashes an eye can separate is a real number, taken from real eyes, and the differences between species are not in dispute. But the fly experiences time slowly is not the measurement. That is our translation of it. Nobody has been inside a fly. What we can say is that the fly's eyes deliver information at a rate yours cannot match, and that its behavior fits an animal with far more warning than you have. What it feels like from in there, if it feels like anything at all, is a door we have not opened. If the ordinary animals in your kitchen keep turning out this strange, stay a while, there are stranger ones coming. So go back to the table. The fly is still there. You are still holding the same hand. Nothing about the scene has changed except that you now know you are the slow one, and that the little gray thing cleaning its face has been watching you the entire time, with plenty of room to spare. You will try again. You already know how it ends. And that second you just spent watching it, the one that felt so ordinary to you, nothing else in that room agreed with you about how long it was.